What's going on, guys? Sean Nalawani, SeanNal.com. And in today's video here, we're talking about testosterone. And I'm going to be giving you 10 ways related to training, nutrition, supplementation, and lifestyle that can increase testosterone levels naturally. Testosterone is crucially important when it comes to gaining muscle, of course. It's the most important muscle building hormone in the body, and it's a limiting factor in determining how much muscle you can gain and how quickly you can do it. And it has a ton of other very important effects in the body as well. And a lot of people don't know this, but over the past couple decades, testosterone levels in the average North American male have been steadily decreasing, some research showing by as much as about 20%. And 1 in 4 men now have testosterone levels that are below the healthy range. And that can bring on quite a few negative side effects. Decreased muscle growth, obviously, fat gain, lowered sex drive, less motivation. You'll probably feel more fatigued. You'll have mood swings, possibly even depression. And it can also negatively impact your cardiovascular health and even increase the risk of prostate cancer too. So following these 10 tips can help to make sure that you're falling within the optimal range. Now, keep in mind that if you already are within the normal healthy range, then applying these tips probably isn't going to increase your testosterone levels high enough to where you're actually going to noticeably build more muscle from it. Because for that to happen, test levels have to be increased by a pretty large margin that usually can't be done naturally. But the moderate increase that you can get can help out in terms of, boosting libido, improving your mood, your energy levels, etc. And these tips also have other benefits aside from just boosting testosterone that genuinely can carry over and help you build more muscle in other ways. And on the other hand, if you are legitimately below the optimal testosterone range right now, then these tips definitely can give you a boost when it comes to building muscle and burning fat at a faster rate if they're able to take you from below average levels up to healthy levels. So 10 tips to naturally increase testosterone. Tip number 1, this is a very basic one, but it has to be mentioned, and most of you guys are probably doing this already, but that is maintaining a regular weight training and exercise plan. People who exercise on a regular basis have higher testosterone levels, plain and simple. And intense resistance training is one of the best things you can do, both in terms of increasing actual testosterone levels and improving androgen receptor sensitivity as well. And if you want to get the strongest effect here, then make sure to center your workouts around big, basic compound exercises that hit multiple muscle groups at the same time. Make sure you're training with sufficient intensity, so I'd say about a rep or 2 short of failure on most sets is a good guideline. And don't use excessively long rest periods either. But bottom line, if you're currently living a relatively sedentary lifestyle, then getting into the gym at least 3 days per week with some additional cardio thrown into the mix, that's going to be one of the best things you can do. Tip number 2, don't overtrain yourself. So just because some weight training is good doesn't automatically mean that more is always going to be better. And overdoing it can actually have the opposite effect on your testosterone levels, especially if you already lead an active lifestyle outside of the gym. Maybe you have a stressful job. All of those things are going to add up. So make sure to regulate your overall training volume and frequency. You don't need to spend hours and hours in the gym 5 or 6 days a week to get results in the first place. And this is a pretty individual thing though, so I'll link a previous post that I did in the description box that goes over 10 overtraining signs and symptoms to look out for and how to properly manage them. But if your strength levels are stagnating or decreasing, you've lost motivation to train, maybe you're just feeling tired and burnt out and not sleeping well, you have chronic joint pain, those are all going to be signs that you might need to cut back a bit. Tip number 3 is to maintain a healthy body fat percentage. So healthy meaning not too high, because excessive body fat is correlated with higher estrogen levels and lower testosterone levels, but it also means not allowing your body fat levels to drop too low. Trying to stay shredded year round with ripped abs and striated shoulders might sound good, but the reality is that that's actually not healthy and it's not sustainable, and going too low will have a direct negative impact on testosterone levels as well. And the lower you go, the worse it's going to get. Anybody who's dieted down to pretty low levels of body fat, myself included, will tell you that the difference you feel in terms of lowered libido and energy and motivation is very obvious, and it clearly bounces back once your body fat levels increase. So in my opinion, if your goal is to maintain a decently lean and aesthetic physique, but also keep your testosterone levels optimized, then somewhere between about 10 to 15% body fat for a male is probably going to be the range that you're going to want to stay in. And even 10% is pretty low for a lot of guys. I'd say probably more like 12% is a safer bet. This is just an estimation though, because there's always going to be genetic outliers who can go lower than that without side effects. But for the average guy with average genetics, dropping much lower than about 12% is probably not going to be ideal in terms of keeping testosterone levels maximized. Tip number 4 is to make sure you're consuming enough dietary fat. So there's a direct relationship between dietary fat intake and testosterone levels. And the last thing you want to be doing if you want to keep those test levels optimized is to be eating a low-fat diet. Keep in mind that dietary fat does not make you fat. Excessive total calorie intake is primarily what makes you fat. And consuming enough fat each day is critical for keeping testosterone in the proper range and just for balanced overall health as well. So as an approximate guideline, I would say to get about 25% of your total calories from fat. You can go higher than that depending on what sort of diet you're following, but I wouldn't go much lower than that, and I would say that about 20% would be the minimum. And fats contain 9 calories per gram, so just take your total daily calorie intake, multiply it by 0.25, and then divide by 9 to get the number of grams of fat to eat. Tip number 5 is to get enough deep, restful sleep each night. The highest amount of testosterone gets produced while you sleep, and chronic undersleeping is going to raise cortisol levels and reduce testosterone as well. And sleep is hugely important, way beyond just increasing testosterone levels. You need it for proper mental focus, training performance, optimizing other important hormone levels as well besides testosterone. So this is not something you want to overlook. And I did a previous post outlining 7 tips that you can use to get the very best sleep possible, and I'll link that in the description box below as well if you want to check that out. Tip number 6 is to lower your overall levels of daily stress. Stress is a killer, not just metaphorically, but actually in the literal sense, because it increases your risk of a pretty lengthy list of diseases, and it keeps cortisol levels chronically elevated, which decreases testosterone as well. So I understand that in modern society, a lot of us are leading pretty busy lives. We have a lot going on. We're constantly under pressure in a variety of ways. And this is something that I personally need to work on as well. But if you want to keep your overall health and your hormone levels properly balanced, you want to at least do the best you can to lower your levels of repetitive daily stress as much as is realistically possible. So that means maintaining a healthy, minimally processed whole food diet and exercising regularly, of course, sleeping well, trying to lower your levels of work-related stress as much as you possibly can, and taking time for yourself to relax and unplug as well. So spending time with friends and family, doing hobbies that you enjoy, just trying to maintain a more lighthearted attitude in general toward things. Meditation can help as well. And even things like laughing more often and even having sex more often have been shown in research to increase testosterone levels as well. Tip number 7, consume enough zinc. About 1/3 of the American population doesn't meet the RDA for zinc, and that can increase estrogen levels and lower testosterone. And this is especially important if you're training hard in the gym, because zinc gets depleted from your body through sweat. So you can increase your consumption of zinc-rich foods, or the other option is to supplement with it to make sure that you're getting enough. 20 to 30 milligrams of zinc, ideally in the form of zinc citrate, with a meal once per day, that would be a pretty standard dose. And if you don't sweat a lot, or if you're already eating a lot of zinc-rich foods, then you can go a bit lower at about 10 to 15 milligrams just to be safe. Tip number 8 is to consume enough magnesium. This is another very important mineral that plays an important role in keeping your test levels in check. And just like zinc, it also gets depleted from your body through sweat. So magnesium-rich foods can help, and supplementation is also an option here at 200 to 400 milligrams per day with a meal. either in the form of magnesium citrate, gluconate, or magnesium diglycinate. And magnesium also has the added benefit of improving sleep quality as well if your current intake of it is too low. Tip number 9, moderate your alcohol intake. Now, alcohol itself is not some horrible, evil substance that you have to completely abstain from in order to stay in great shape. I did a post about bodybuilding and alcohol intake a while back, and I'll link that in the description box as well. But you do need to apply some basic moderation here and not go overboard with it if you want to keep your testosterone levels maximized. So the equivalent of about 1 to 2 drinks per day probably won't be an issue, and it can actually have certain health benefits. And even drinking more heavily once in a while, if you're going out partying or something like that, probably isn't going to be an issue as long as you're doing it relatively infrequently. But if you're having, multiple drinks, multiple days per week to the point of getting decently buzzed, or you're getting, you're aggressively binge drinking every single weekend, then that can definitely add up and have a measurable effect. So if you want to keep your testosterone levels fully optimized, you don't have to cut out alcohol completely, but moderating your intake in combination with the other tips I've mentioned here is probably going to be a good idea. And tip number 10 is to get out in the sun, and that's because vitamin D intake is correlated with testosterone production. And the lower your vitamin D levels are below the healthy range, the lower your levels of testosterone are going to be as well. And because of the indoor lifestyle that most of us live nowadays, almost 50% of Americans are actually deficient in vitamin D. So if you can get out in the sun about 30 minutes a day, that will definitely help. And if you want to make sure your vitamin D levels are fully optimized, or if you're in the winter months or you live somewhere that doesn't get a lot of sun, then vitamin D supplementation is also an option. Technically speaking, you'd need to get blood work done to know exactly how much vitamin D you should be supplementing with, but 2,000 to 3,000 IUs per day is a good guideline for most people. So that covers it. 10 ways to increase testosterone levels naturally. These aren't the only tips there are, but these are definitely some of the main ones. And these are all very important things, not just for boosting testosterone levels, but also just for maintaining proper overall health as well. So even if your test levels are already within the optimal range, I'd still recommend going through and making sure that you're following all of these tips for the other benefits that they provide as well. So thanks for watching, guys. If you found this advice helpful and you want to get all the step-by-step tools you need to gain muscle and lose fat at your maximum potential, the workout plans, meal plans, supplement guides, along with one-on-one coaching, then you can check out my complete body transformation blueprint by clicking here or by heading over to bodytransformationtruth.com. using the link in the description. If you enjoyed the video, as always, make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to stay up to date on future videos. You can also check out my official blog over at SeanNell.com for all of my latest updates, and you can follow me on social media here if you aren't already. Links for that are also in the description box. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.